Fate Likes to Play by Sierra Steinbrecher. Chapter 39. All the Pieces. While Toothless and Hiccup slept and regained their strength from the battle, flight to the castle, and everything that came after it, Gaius pulled Cloudjumper all the way across the castle to the library. Then he ran off muttering,
"Now where did I put them?"
The younger man looked around the room, admiring the tall shelves filled with books, the long tables covered with samples of different species, strange mechanics, and all sorts of knowledge that couldn't be squirreled away between pages. There were a few fireplaces with armchairs, rugs, and giant cushions gathered around them, perfect places to hunker down with a book of your choice. He walked over to a shelf and ran his hand over the row of spines and started reading one when Gaius shouted from the opposite side of the room,
"Found them!"
He bustled back over to Cloudjumper, brandishing a bound stack of paper.
"These are all letters Princess Valka sent me after she caught that arrow hunting and was betrothed to King Stoic."
He looked down for a moment, remembering the day she'd had to leave.
"It got so lonely once she left, and even worse when we found out what happened a few years later."
"I know, but how does Hiccup fit into all this?" Cloudjumper inquired as he led the older man over to one of the reading areas and sat him in an armchair.
"Well," continued Gaius, "Valka and Stoic grew to love each other very much, if her letters were any indication, and had no problem starting a family."
He gestured at the stack now situated in his lap.
"In fact, they had 3 sons. Stoic named the first 2 Hubert and Hamish, family names you know, but Valka insisted she get to name the last one. Here, I'll show you the letter."
He untied the strings and leafed through the bundle until he finally pulled one out and handed it to Cloudjumper. It read, "Dear Gaius, I hope your back has gotten better since I last wrote to you, and that father is all right. I have excellent news. I had the baby. He's so adorable, Gaius, the smallest of all my sons, with Stoic's nose, although the man insists he has my eyes. So big and so green, Gaius." But that wasn't even the first thing I noticed about him. You see, after the initial cry he made and the midwife started cleaning him off, he started hiccuping. He just kept on making that adorable sound, and when the midwife handed him to me, the force of the hiccups shook him in my arms. That's how I decided what his name was going to be. He's my little boy, my Hiccup. I hope you and Father can come and visit me, Stoic, and the boy soon. I've been a little under the weather since the birth, but the physician assures me that I'll be fine, so don't worry." Cloudjumper stopped reading and handed the letter back to the elderly man. "She wrote that right before she died, didn't she?"
"Yes,"
he answered as he tucked the paper back into the stack and bound it back up.
"That was the last one she sent me. You know what happened after that?"
Cloudjumper nodded. "The king followed her, and then there was no one to protect the lands and keep order, since his majesty had no other children." "Wait." Cloudjumper stood suddenly. "Doesn't that mean Hubert, Hamish, and Hiccup are the heirs to both this throne and Stoic's?" Gaius stood as well, holding the bundle in his hands.
"Yes, it does."
"We have to tell Hiccup and Toothless."
"Yes, but not now."
The elder grabbed Cloudjumper's wrist and pulled him back into one of the seats.
"We should let them rest more before dropping this on them. I doubt they had any idea just where they were and who they are to this place."
Cloudjumper stopped resisting and let himself sink into the comfortable cushions.
"Now why don't we go through some more of these letters while we wait?"
Cloudjumper let a small smile creep onto his face. "Yes, please." And he grabbed the top letter. Back in the infirmary, Hiccup woke up a few hours after the surgery from the dull throbbing in his side. The numbing must have worn off while he was asleep. Toothless peered over the edge of the bed to get a better look at him, and, when she saw his awake face, warbled a good morning. He smiled and used his elbows to prop him up a bit more. The action pulled on his newly bandaged wound, and he hissed. In less than a second, Toothless was almost on top of him, staring him down with those big green eyes.
"I'm fine,"
he comforted.
"It's just sore."
He eased himself back down again and reached up a hand to rub her between the eyes. "How are you, milady?" She crooned at him and held her bandaged tail above his head for him to inspect. He nodded. "Looks good. Free of blood." She moved it back to the floor and shoved her face even closer to his, still giving him a very worried look. "I'm fine." He smiled up at her and propped himself up again just enough to brush where her lips might have been with his own. A shiver spread up at the point of contact all the way down her body, and she collapsed in a puddle at his bedside. Hiccup laughed. Well, I guess that's one way to conquer a dragon. She growled at him with a giggle buried in the sound, rather nullified any hope she had of sounding ferocious. Hiccup let himself sink back into the mattress again. The throbbing in his side had receded to a dull ache, and he thought that perhaps he could fall back asleep. But just as he closed his eyes to make the attempt, Cloudjumper walked into the room to check on him. He looked at Toothless and... Was that a snake? It seems someone has a sweet spot, he said with an undercurrent of laughter. But it's good that you're awake, he added. I need to talk to you about something.